He waited where the stage always stopped, hands still, jaw tight. Every passing second pressed heavier on his chest. The driver climbed down. Strangers stepped out. Luggage hit the dirt. Voices rose and scattered. But the woman he was waiting for never appeared. By the time the coach rolled away empty, something inside him had already broken. Not anger, not pride, hope. He had sent his money, sent his name, sent his promise, and now there was only silence where a life was supposed to begin. Then he heard one sentence drift from a nearby table. Something about a wreck on the East Trail. Something about a woman traveling alone. And suddenly, waiting no longer felt like the worst thing that could happen. Because what if she had come and never arrived at all? Jonah Crow was not a man who expected much from the world. He was 36 years old, broad in the shoulders, worn in the face, and shaped by long seasons of wind and work. The land north of Red Hollow had carved him down to what was useful and left the rest behind. He lived alone in a one-room cabin with a dirt floor, a cast-iron stove, and a silence so deep it rang in his ears at night. He had chosen that life, or at least, he told himself he had. 6 months earlier, he had sat stiffly in a newspaper office 2 towns south and dictated an advertisement he barely believed in as he spoke it. Rancher. Solitary life. Seeking honest wife for partnership and home. Respect guaranteed. He expected nothing to come of it. Then the letters arrived. They were careful letters. Thoughtful. Written by a woman named Eliza Moore from Illinois. She said she was 28. She said she could sew, cook, and work. She said she was not fragile, only tired. She said she wanted quiet. She said she wanted a place where her past did not matter. Jonah had read those letters by lamplight until the paper softened in his hands. Now he stood on the boardwalk outside the Red Hollow stage depot, watching the empty space where she should have been. The station master cleared his throat. "That was all of them," he said. "No more passengers coming through today." Quote, Jonah nodded once, as if he had expected this. Inside his coat pocket, the folded letter pressed against his ribs. He did not take it out. He did not need to read it again. The words were already burned into him. He turned away before anyone could speak to him, before anyone could look at him with that quiet pity men saved for fools. The saloon door swung inward with a dull creak. Heat and stale air hit his face. He took a seat in the back, his shoulders to the wall, and ordered a whiskey he barely tasted. That was when he heard them talking. 2 freight haulers near the bar, mud on their boots, worry in their voices. "Wrecked wagons," one of them said, "east of Skeleton Cut. Bad one." "Anybody live?" the bartender asked. The man shook his head. "Found bodies frozen stiff, and one woman listed on the manifest, traveling alone." Jonah's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. He stood so fast the chair scraped hard against the floor. "What name?" he asked. The freight hauler looked him over. "Moore. Moore." Headed for Red Hollow. The room tilted. Jonah did not finish his drink. He left the saloon, crossed the street, and went straight to the general store. He bought rope, ammunition, a lantern, oil, a heavy wool blanket, jerky, brandy. No one tried to stop him. No one asked questions. Within minutes he was mounted and riding east into open land that did not forgive mistakes. The trail was faint, old snow. Wind cut ruts. The sky pressed low and hard. Jonah leaned forward in the saddle, eyes fixed on the ground, searching for any sign the wagons had passed. Hours dragged by. Then he saw it. First a smashed crate. Then a length of fabric tangled in brush. Then a single glove, fine leather pearl button still fastened. It did not belong out here. His jaw locked as he rode on. The wreck sat in a shallow ravine, half buried by drift and shadow. 3 wagons destroyed. Canvas torn. Wood split. Lives scattered and frozen where they fell. Jonah dismounted slowly. "Eliza," he called, his voice swallowed by wind. He searched the wreckage with growing dread. One body. Then another. Men. A woman with gray hair clutched to her chest. Not her. He circled the last wagon, heart pounding harder with every step. That was when he saw the blue fabric beneath a broken trunk. He dropped to his knees and hauled the trunk aside with a sound torn from his chest. Beneath it lay a woman curled inward, her body shielded by wreckage, her coat ripped, her hair dark with dried blood. "Eliza," he whispered. Her skin was cold, too cold. He pressed his fingers to her neck and held his breath. There. Barely. Jonah pulled her free and wrapped her in the blanket, shielding her from the wind with his own body. Her lashes fluttered, her lips moved. "You came," she breathed. The words shattered him. He lifted her into the saddle, bound them together with rope so she would not fall, and turned his horse back toward home as snow began to fall sideways from the sky. By the time his cabin came into view, night had swallowed the land whole. He carried her inside and built the fire with shaking hands, struck match after match until heat roared to life. He stripped her wet clothes away with his face turned aside and covered her with every blanket he owned. Then he sat and watched her breathe. When her eyes finally opened hours later, fear flashed across her face. "You're safe," Jonah said quickly. "You're in my cabin." She stared at him, at his scarred hands, his rough coat, his careful distance. "You're Jonah," she whispered. He nodded. "I didn't miss the journey," she said faintly. "I fought to reach you." Jonah swallowed hard, and for the first time in many years he realized something simple and terrifying. Saving her had only been the beginning. Eliza woke slowly, not all at once, but in pieces. First came warmth, then pain, then the sound of fire popping somewhere close. Her eyes opened to low timber beams darkened by smoke. A stove ticked as metal shifted. The air smelled of pine, coffee grounds, and something faintly medicinal. She tried to move, and pain shot through her ribs, sharp enough to steal her breath. A sound escaped her before she could stop it. Jonah was at her side instantly. "Easy," he said. His voice was deep, careful, like he was speaking to something skittish. "Don't try to sit yet." She turned her head. He was sitting on a chair pulled close to the bed, his elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. His eyes were dark with worry. He had not slept. "Where am I?" she asked. "My place," he said. "North of Red Hollow. You were pinned under the wreck. I got you out." Memory came back in a rush, the wagon tipping, the scream of horses. Cold so deep it felt like sinking. "You found me," she whispered. Jonah nodded, barely in time. Her gaze dropped to the blankets. Then, lower, she stiffened. "My clothes." He looked away at once. "They were soaked through. I had to get you dry or you wouldn't have made it. I kept my eyes turned." "I swear it." The heat in her face was sharp and sudden, but beneath it was something else. Relief. He was embarrassed, genuinely. "Thank you," she said quietly. He stood. "I'll give you space. I'll be outside chopping wood. If you need anything, call out." He moved toward the door, careful not to rush her. That care stayed with her after he left. It settled something tight in her chest. The days blurred together. Snow fell heavy outside, sealing the cabin in white. Eliza drifted between sleep and waking, while Jonah tended the fire, cooked thin broth, and cleaned her wounds with hands that shook when he tried to be gentle. She learned the sounds of him, the scrape of boots on plank, the soft grunt when he lifted water, the quiet way he cleared his throat before speaking. He never touched her unless necessary. Even then, he warned her first. "I need to change the bandage," he would say. "This will sting." It always did. She never cried out. On the third day, she was strong enough to sit propped against pillows. Jonah handed her a tin cup of coffee. Their fingers brushed. Both pulled back at the same time. Silence followed. Not awkward, just full. "I didn't think anyone would come for me," she said later. Her voice was thin but steady. When the cold set in. "I would have kept riding until I found you or froze," Jonah said. She looked at him then, really looked. The scar on his jaw was pale and jagged. His hands were rough. His eyes carried something heavy, "Why?" she asked. He did not answer right away. "You came," he said finally. That mattered. As she healed, words came easier, small ones at first, then more. She told him about sewing rooms with no windows, about boarding houses where doors did not always stay locked, about deciding to answer a newspaper ad because it felt like choosing herself for once. He listened without interrupting. He told her less. But what he did tell mattered. He spoke of the ranch, of winters that swallowed the land whole, of learning to live with quiet, because noise led to trouble. He did not mention the scar. Not yet. A week passed. When Jonah rode into town for supplies, Eliza felt the cabin shrink around her. He barred the door before leaving and made her promise not to open it for anyone. She waited. Fear crept in slow. Not of the storm, of people. When Jonah returned at dusk, relief hit her so hard her knees went weak. They talked, he said that night. In town. Her stomach tightened. About me, quote, yes. She braced herself. They think things, he went on, things that aren't true. She laughed softly, without humor. They always do. He looked at her then, really looked. I won't let them harm you, he said. She believed him. That scared her more than doubt ever had. 2 nights later, wind tore at the shutters. One hinge snapped loose with a crack like a gunshot. Snow blew into the room. They rushed together to slam it shut. Shoulder to shoulder, breath ragged. For a moment, neither moved. She could feel the heat of him. The strength held tight, leashed. She stepped back first. I don't want to be a burden, she said suddenly. He frowned. You're not. I don't want you thinking I owe you, she pressed. He crossed the room and stopped in front of her, not touching. I don't think that, he said, and I won't let you. Her voice wavered. Men have said that before. Something dark flickered behind his eyes. He mastered it fast. I am not them, he said. She believed that too. When the snow eased days later, Jonah rode her into town to see a doctor. Heads turned. Whispers followed. He stayed at her side the entire time. By the time they rode back out, Eliza understood something she had not planned for. Staying alive had been the first fight. Staying respected would be the next. That night, Jonah spoke the words neither of them had said aloud yet. There's talk, he said. Bad talk. She met his gaze. I know. There's a way to stop it. She went still. We could marry, he said, blunt and honest. It was the reason you came. It would give you my name. Protection. She did not answer right away. Would you want that? She asked finally. Or would it just be convenient? Jonah's jaw tightened. I don't want you trapped, he said. I want you safe. She nodded slowly. Safety had always been something men offered with strings attached. She would need time to see what his strings were made of. Outside, the wind pressed against the cabin again. Inside, 2 people sat in careful silence, both understanding that what came next would change everything. Morning came thin and pale. Eliza woke to the sound of Jonah moving around the cabin. Wood clinked into the stove. A kettle rattled. The steady rhythm calmed her more than sleep had. She sat up slowly. Her ribs still hurt, but the pain had dulled into something manageable. A reminder, not a warning. Jonah noticed her watching and paused. You should still be resting. I am, she said, just upright. He accepted that with a small nod. He poured coffee into 2 tin cups and set one beside her. They drank in silence. The question from the night before sat between them like an unlit lantern. Marriage. Eliza broke first. If we do this, she said carefully, it won't be because people are whispering. Jonah's eyes stayed on his cup. I wouldn't want it that way either. And it won't be because you feel responsible for pulling me out of the snow. I don't, he said quickly, then stopped himself. I mean, I do feel responsible for you now. But not like that. She watched his hands, big hands, scarred, honest. I've been passed from place to place, she said. From man to man, always owed, always expected to be grateful. Jonah looked up then. I don't want gratitude. What do you want? She asked. He took a breath. I want someone who chooses to stay. That landed harder than any promise. 2 days later, they rode into Red Hollow together. Eliza wore her best dress, navy wool, mended at the hem. She sat tall in the saddle Jonah had prepared for her, though her hands shook on the reins. The town stared. Women whispered behind gloved hands. Men watched too long. Jonah dismounted first and offered his hand. She took it. He did not let go as they walked. The preacher was surprised to see them. He shuffled papers, coughed, asked if they were certain. Yes, Jonah said. Eliza hesitated. Then she said it too. Yes. The ceremony was short. The church was cold. Breath fogged the air. When Jonah slid the ring onto her finger, his hand trembled. When he kissed her cheek, it was quick and respectful. Outside, the town watched with narrowed eyes. On the ride home, the wind cut sharp across the plains. Jonah leaned over and pulled her collar up without a word, blocking the worst of it. That small act meant more than the vows had. Night fell heavy. Inside the cabin, the air felt different, charged, expectant. Eliza stood by the bed, undoing the pins in her hair. Her hands shook. Memories pressed in, locked doors, raised voices, hands where they did not belong. Jonah saw it. He stopped several steps away. We don't have to, he said. She looked at him. I know. I won't touch you unless you want me to. She swallowed. I'm afraid. I know, he said again. He held out his hand. Palm up. Waiting. She stepped forward and placed her hand in his. They stood like that for a long moment. Just hands. Just breath. Then he kissed her. Slow. Careful. Asking. She answered. When fear rose again, he stopped. He let her decide every inch. They slept beside each other that night, not tangled, not distant. His arm around her waist. Solid. Steady. For the first time since the wreck, she slept through the dark. Spring came slow and muddy. The land thawed in fits. Creeks swelled. Fence posts leaned. Eliza worked beside Jonah, learning the ranch. He taught her to ride better, to read the ledgers, to spot storms before they broke. They were partners, not just by word, by action. Town did not soften right away. Mrs. Dalrymple at the store made sharp comments. Men at the hitching rail laughed too loud. Jonah shut that down once, quietly, firmly. When supplies ran low, he rode in alone. Eliza waited, dread curling in her stomach until he returned. I won't leave you unprotected, he said one night when she admitted it. You already do, she replied, by trusting me. That trust grew. Then trouble arrived. 2 men rode in on fine horses, city clothes, clean boots. They asked questions about the wreck, about missing property, about Eliza. Jonah heard it at the blacksmith's. He rode home hard. The men were already there when he arrived, one thin and watchful, one soft-faced with cruel eyes. The soft one smiled. Mr. Crow. Jonah stepped between him and Eliza without thinking. I'm Mr. Hale, the man said. From Illinois. Eliza went pale. That's him, she whispered. My landlord. The man's eyes slid over her, possessive, familiar. We're here about stolen goods, Hale said smoothly. A bag missing from the wreck. Jonah's voice was low. Get off my land. Your wife took it, Hale said. Or so we believe. Eliza shook her head. I grabbed the wrong bag. I dropped it when the wagon collapsed. Hale smiled wider. Convenient? He leaned closer. Jonah's hand hovered near his gun. Careful, Jonah said. You're close to forgetting where you are. Hale backed off with a laugh. We'll let the judge decide. They rode away. The silence they left behind was heavy. That night, Eliza confessed everything. The bag, the weight, the moment she realized it was not hers. I didn't steal, she said, but I touched it. Jonah listened. Then he said, I believe you. Relief broke her. But believing won't be enough, he added. They'll come back with papers. I'll leave, she said quickly. If I go, they'll stop chasing you. Jonah's face hardened. No. This land matters to you. You matter more. They argued then. Really argued. Voices raised, fear laid bare. Finally, Jonah said it. Raw. Honest. I was empty before you, he said. If you leave, I go back to that. Eliza understood then. This was not duty, this was not rescue, this was love, terrified and real. She stayed. The summons came 2 days later. Court in Red Hollow. They rode together. Whatever waited there, they would face it side by side. The courthouse smelled of dust and old paper. Eliza felt it the moment she stepped inside. The weight of eyes. The hush that fell too quickly. People were not here for justice. They were here to watch. Jonah walked beside her, his presence steady. He did not squeeze her hand. He did not rush her. He simply stayed close. Judge Markham sat high behind the desk. His hair was gray. His face was carved hard by years of frontier decisions. The man called Hale stood straight and confident at the front. His associate shuffled papers and avoided looking at anyone too long. This hearing concerns missing property from a wagon wreck, the judge said. Proceed. Hale spoke first. His voice was smooth, practiced. A carpet bag containing money and jewelry vanished after the wreck, he said. Mrs. Crow was seen alive at the site. She admits to taking a bag. Eliza stood when asked. Her knees shook, but her voice held. I grabbed what I thought was mine, she said. I was hurt, cold. I dropped it when the wagon collapsed further. Hale stepped closer. You fled Illinois under poor circumstances. Isn't that true? Jonah stiffened. Eliza answered anyway. I fled a man who would not accept no. Murmurs rippled through the room. Hale smiled thinly. Or perhaps you fled debts. Or temptation. Jonah stood before the judge could stop him. Enough, Jonah said. You want truth. I'll give you mine. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Jonah spoke slowly. I rode into a storm to find her. I found her pinned and freezing. She had nothing, no bag, no gold, just her life. Hale scoffed. Your word proves nothing. A voice rose from the back, old, rough. I was there. The scout stepped forward, same man from the saloon months earlier. Weathered. Quiet. I tracked the site, he said. Found signs of riders passing through after the wreck. Looters! The judge leaned forward. Hale's face tightened. You have no proof, Hale snapped. The scout reached into his pocket and placed a broken clasp on the desk. Found this near the creek, torn clean. Wind and animals dragged the rest. Silence fell. The judge studied it, then looked at Hale. This case rests on assumption, he said. Dismissed. Hale's composure shattered. She owes me, he shouted. She belongs to me. The words echoed too loudly. The judge's eyes hardened. Court adjourned. Outside, Hale lunged. Jonah moved faster. Hale reached for Eliza's arm. Jonah shoved him back hard enough to send him stumbling. Hale drew a small pistol. Jonah's gun was already out. Drop it, Jonah said. The alley froze. Hale hesitated, then dropped the weapon. Leave this territory, Jonah said. If you return, I won't warn you. Hale fled. The judge witnessed it all. He said nothing as Jonah holstered his gun. They rode away in silence. Halfway home, clouds rose fast. Thunder cracked. Rain slammed down in sheets. They took shelter in an old line shack by the creek. Inside, soaked and shaking, Eliza finally broke. You had to bare your soul for me, she said. I ruin everything. Jonah knelt before her. I chose you, he said, every time. The storm roared outside. Lightning lit the walls. This time, when they came together, there was no fear left. No ghosts between them. Only trust. When dawn came, the storm was gone. So was the doubt. They rode home knowing the worst had passed. Or so they thought. The ranch looked the same when they returned. Same fence line cutting across the plain. Same cabin crouched against the wind. Same barn leaning just a little more each year. But something underneath had shifted. Eliza felt it the moment she dismounted. The land no longer felt like borrowed ground. It felt claimed, not owned, chosen. Jonah saw it too, though he did not say it out loud. The days that followed were quiet, but not peaceful. Trouble had a way of lingering after it showed its face. Jonah rode the fence lines more than usual. He checked the horizon every morning, and every evening he slept lighter. His hand found the rifle without thought whenever the wind rattled the shutters too hard. Eliza noticed. "You don't have to guard me every breath," she said one night as they ate stew by the fire. "I know," Jonah replied, "but it's hard to stop." She reached across the table and touched his hand. "Then let me guard you too." That stopped him. Spring pushed forward whether the past allowed it or not. Mud turned to grass. Grass turned green. Calves dropped in the high pasture. Eliza learned fast. She learned how to hold a lantern steady while Jonah worked a stuck berth. She learned how to calm a nervous horse with her voice alone. She learned the ledgers better than Jonah ever had. Word spread. Not fast, not kindly at first, but it spread. People noticed she worked, that she stood straight, that she did not hide. When they rode into Red Hollow for supplies, the looks changed. Not warm, but measuring now. Respectful in the way frontier people respected endurance. Mrs. Dalrymple offered Eliza thread without a sharp word. A ranch wife nodded instead of whispering. It was a beginning. Then came the fire. It started west of the ridge on a dry afternoon when the sky felt wrong. Too still. Too bright. Jonah smelled smoke before he saw it. They ran. Wind drove the flames hard and fast. Grass burned like oil. The fire moved toward the barn. Jonah hitched the team while Eliza soaked burlap sacks. They worked without shouting, without panic. Each knew what the other would do. Embers landed on the roof. Jonah climbed with a bucket. Flames licked his boots. Eliza beat sparks from the corral fence until her arms screamed. The wind shifted at the last moment. The fire moved past them, angry and roaring, but spared the buildings. When it was over, Jonah dropped to his knees in the dirt. Eliza fell beside him. They laughed then. Shaky, exhausted, alive. That night, wrapped together under a blanket on the porch, Jonah spoke softly. "I thought I'd lose it all today." Eliza leaned back against him. "You didn't." "I would have chosen you anyway," he said. She turned in his arms and kissed him slow, deep, certain. 2 days later the letter arrived. No seal, no signature, just a warning scratched in ugly ink. "You haven't seen the last of this." Eliza's hands trembled as she passed it to Jonah. He read it once, then fed it to the fire. "He won't come back," Eliza said, trying to believe it. Jonah stared into the flames. Men like him don't let go easy. They did not sleep much that night. Morning brought riders. Not Hale, the sheriff. He brought news instead of threats. "They found the missing bag," he said, "down near the creek bend, buried in silt." Eliza sagged with relief. "And," he added, "Hale tried to claim it. Judge didn't like that. Turns out Hale has a record." Jonah let out a slow breath. "It's over," the sheriff said. "As far as the law is concerned." When he rode away, silence filled the yard. Eliza stepped into Jonah's arms. "It's really over," she whispered. Jonah rested his chin on her hair. "Now we live." Summer came hard and bright. Eliza opened a small sewing trade. Jonah built a new fence line. They ate supper late and slept tired. One afternoon, a preacher rode out with news. A boy had been found near the wreck site months earlier. Quiet. Alone. No family came forward. Eliza's heart clenched. "He survived," she said softly. "Just like I did." Jonah watched her face, saw the hope there, the fear too. "We could help," she said. "At least meet him." Jonah hesitated, then nodded. They did not take the boy that day. But when they rode away, the seed was planted. That night, Eliza lay awake, listening to Jonah's breathing. The land outside was vast, dangerous, unforgiving. But inside the cabin, warmth held. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And for the first time, Eliza was not afraid of the future. She was ready for it. Summer did not arrive gently. It came with heat that pressed down on the land and pulled sweat from the body before a man had finished his morning coffee. The grass turned gold. The creek ran low. Cicadas sang until the air itself seemed to vibrate. Life settled into a rhythm. Eliza rose early. She baked bread before the sun cleared the ridge. She mended clothes on the porch and kept careful notes in the ledger Jonah had once treated like an afterthought. Jonah worked the range from dawn to dusk. They met in the middle of the day for water and a quiet look that said more than words. They were not pretending anymore. They were building something real. One afternoon, Jonah rode in from the north pasture to find Eliza standing very still near the porch steps. She held a letter. Her face had gone pale. He dismounted fast. "What is it?" She handed it to him without speaking. It was from Red Rock. The boy's name was Caleb. The family who had taken him in could not keep him much longer. Food was tight. Space tighter. The boy barely spoke. He startled at loud sounds. He slept, curled into himself like he expected the world to break apart again. Eliza's voice shook. He was there that night, on the trail, just a child. Jonah folded the letter slowly. He looked toward the open land, toward the direction where wreckage had once been scattered across ice and mud. "He survived," Jonah said. "Yes," Eliza whispered, "but he is still alone." Jonah did not answer right away. He had faced storms, fire, a loaded gun. None of it made his chest feel tight like this. "I don't know how to be what a boy needs," he said. Eliza stepped closer. She took his hand. "Neither did I know how to survive that storm. We learned." They rode to Red Rock 2 days later. The homestead was crowded, loud, children everywhere. The boy stayed in the barn loft. Eliza climbed first. Jonah waited below, feeling too large for the space, too unsure. She sat on the floor and waited. After a long moment, a small face appeared between the hay bales. Eyes too old for his years. "My name is Eliza," she said softly. "I was on the wagons too." The boy did not move. She reached into her pocket and set down a small cloth horse she had sewn the night before. No words, no pushing. The boy crawled forward inch by inch and took it. That was enough. Jonah climbed the ladder slowly. He sat a distance away and pulled a small wooden whistle from his pocket. He handed it to the boy. "For when the world gets loud," Jonah said. The boy clutched it tight. They did not take him home that day, but when they rode away, both knew it was only a matter of time. The fire came back in late summer. Not as fierce as before, but closer. They fought it together again. Eliza beat sparks from the fence line, while Jonah widened the fire break. Smoke burned their lungs. Heat scorched skin. When it passed, they stood in blackened grass, holding each other and breathing hard. That night, Jonah spoke quietly. "If the land takes more, we rebuild." Eliza nodded. "And if it gives more, we share." The letter came in early fall. Caleb had no remaining family. The court would place him with a household willing to take him in. Eliza did not speak. She simply looked at Jonah. Jonah closed his eyes. "All right," he said. "Bring him home." The boy arrived with a small bundle of clothes and the cloth horse tucked under his arm. He did not speak for days. Eliza gave him space. Jonah showed him the animals. No pressure, no questions. One evening, Jonah was mending a fence rail when a small voice spoke behind him. "Does the fire come back?" Jonah turned slowly. "Sometimes," he said, "but we know how to fight it." The boy nodded once. That night, Caleb slept through until morning. Seasons turned. Winter came again, but softer this time. The cabin was warmer. Laughter echoed where silence once ruled. The land was still harsh, the future still uncertain. But something had changed. Jonah was no longer a man waiting for punishment. Eliza was no longer a woman running from ghosts. Caleb was no longer alone. They stood together on the porch one evening as snow fell light and steady. Eliza leaned into Jonah. Caleb pressed against her side. "Do you think this will last?" she asked. Jonah looked at the horizon. "Nothing lasts forever, but this is worth fighting for." Eliza smiled. So did the boy. They went inside and shut the door against the cold. If this tale touched your heart tonight, I'd be honored to have you join our little frontier family here. Your subscription helps keep these Wild West stories alive, and it means more to me than you know. If you'd like to hear more journeys of danger, love, and second chances out on the frontier, just hit that subscribe button before you ride out. Thank you for spending your time with me, partner. I'll see you in the next story.